Hello, I'm Anita Pebbles. I'm just exploring people who are passionate about the same things that I'm passionate about. And today I have Emily Quandt, my epic longtime bestie and self-directed education specialist, self-made. She is a co-founder and facilitator of Free to Learn, which is a self-directed community of unschoolers. What the heck is that? That's where the kids have a 100% freedom to build their own lives outside of the compulsory education system. What? No school? How will they learn? This is what we're here to talk about. Like, how is that even possible? No school. What is this? This is the whole world does school. Everybody sends their kids up. So we're here to talk about that. And the first question I have for Emily today is like a big one. I think every question is a big one. But so the first question I would like to ask Emily is, actually, I would like to say, hello, Emily. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, so glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you. And I'm really, really excited to talk about these things with you as they live deeply in my heart and every single cell. My kids have self-directed themselves into a school, which is kind of funny. But my first question for you is, how can I be sure my kids will learn the things that they need to know, such as math, reading, language, etc.?
So good question. This is the very biggest question that we get from everybody who hears about how these kids are just getting together and doing their own thing all day, every day. And what happens is if something is actually basic knowledge that you need in order to live successfully in this world, right? So you can't function without that knowledge. What is actually true is you can't help but learn that information. So the basics will all be captured in kids' natural learning, which happens through living every day. We don't need to force them or trick them or schedule them into learning basic knowledge. Basic knowledge and skills are defined by our culture and our time, right? So in our current world, whereas once it might have been basic to know how to saddle a horse, and you cannot exist without knowing how to saddle a horse, right? Like that's absolutely must be. Today, it's basic knowledge to know how to open a web browser. It is basic knowledge to know how to download apps. Things like that are basic now. So the rich world environment that every single child is born into is completely set up to prioritize the knowledge and the skills very reliably and naturally based on experiences that they're coming into. So they don't miss anything. They don't have to do anything. They just absorb that information. They actually learn it without anyone doing anything. So,
okay, thank you. Now, when you say without anyone doing anything,
yes,
please be more specific.
So, little ones go through their lives, and they always, if you watch your little tiny toddler, have an agenda of their own, right? They're going to get up in the morning and they're going to play until they get hungry, and then they're going to come over and nag on your leg until you feed them some food. And then they're going to go back to what they were doing, and they're just going to keep the role of their day every single day. And you can never direct them anywhere. And they will live through each one of their days. They will come to you when they hit a stop that they can't fulfill of a need, right? Like they'll bring you their little tiny toy and they're trying to get it apart and they can't get it apart. They come, they find someone who they have observed potentially has the skill to make that happen for them. They'll come and get them. They'll somehow make it known that they need this toy separated, and then they'll go back to what they were doing. So that's what the toddlers do, and we let them do that freely, right? Well, it turns out if you don't interrupt that flow of their natural days, they will continue to pursue the things that they're interested in doing all the way through their life, and they will get what they need to do. So if they're playing a video game when they're 8 and it's a chatting video game where they need to be able to absorb information, right? There's like coding happening, and there's words happening about the gameplay and all these different things. They're going to seek out someone who can interpret that for them, and they're going to find out, like, this is the code, this is the chat, how do I distinguish that? Where are the words? Where are the codes? How do I put this together? And that's what they do every second of every day. They are absorbing the things that they need to know in order to function. And when they're toddlers, it might be, just learning how to interact with the dogs. And when as they get older, they seek bigger and bigger and bigger adventures, right? Mm-hmm. So in seeking those adventures, they're going to continue to expand. They're going to hit bigger stops, like to identify between coding and words. Like that's a pretty high level mastery, right? Like, okay, I need this code to build this block, and which code is which. So they're in essence, potentially, if they're Minecrafters, they're learning 2 languages at once, because they still don't read English, but they're also now learning to read code in order to make this magical land in Minecraft or whatever they're doing. But they're always absorbing that information. So you walk through the room and it looks like your kid is just spending hours and hours and hours playing on video games, but turns out he's actually learned to code, he's learned to read, and he's built these amazing social structures, social systems where he knows how to ask questions, and he knows how to get the answers, and he's like building up all of these life skills that he's going to use for the rest of his life. And all he's been doing is just sitting there gaming, which oftentimes is, people think like, well, that's not a valuable skill, just gaming. They're not learning the real important things. And like, they're doing math, they're doing writing, they're doing, their social skills is a huge thing that they're working on right there. In that particular example, because they're oftentimes having to source other humans in order to make their creations happen. And yeah, so there's huge amounts of things that are going on in that.
Boy, talk about the value of looking a little closer and being with something, if one is interested in doing such a thing. I'm not hearing much about kids approaching things in a way where they are doing them to finish them. They're doing them to be with them. And that is crazy different and not how the world works. But yeah, that's just something I was just observing. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I mean, just to speak to that, we are in the 2020, like the world has broken down, needs to be unplugged and plugged back in again, and everything has stopped, right? And so as everything has stopped, all of us adults who went through a more traditional school system, I was homeschooled, but did school at home. So, my mind thinks in that same way as well. I'm a little bit out of the box, but what I think of is like, this is your curriculum. You have to get this done in these months, and done is the operative word, right? Like, yes, you have this, get these things all done, do it before next school year starts. And so for me, like, now here we are trapped in our homes, everyone's trapped in our homes, and what are we going to do? Like, all of my done things I'm away from. Like, I can't potentially work on projects that have been in the works. I can't, finish all the things. And so for me, it's really brought up a lot. It's like boiling a lot to the surface of like, wait, now I'm stressed out about not getting that done. But the entire world is on pause. There's absolutely no one who's like calling me to account for finishing those projects. And I realized for myself, like, this stress is all like coming from inside here. It's all in here.
No one except yourself. Yeah.
right? And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with
Oh my
most of
God.
us right now, right? Like, unless you're in the medical field or somewhere else, like, nobody is telling you to do stuff. Nobody's going to say, you didn't get that done while you were at home all that time. But still you feel stressed. And that's because that stress is deep inside of ourselves, because I would set out that that's a part of our culture. Like, so frequently, you know, you have to do your projects, like, get it done. We're solid Americans. So this is our culture right now. It's like, do. And you can't just walk away from stuff. Like, how many times did your parents be like, what is going on? Like, that's terrible. And, you know, it turns out it's not terrible. If you don't like it anymore, like, walk away from it. Why do people stay in relationships that are abusive? Because I would posit that they've always been told, you have to stay. Yes, it's hard work, but you've got to stay. You've got to hammer this out. You have to stick with this, right? And they're like, well, I told this person I was going to be with them, so I just have to stay. And just losing the freedom of choice, that sometimes you start something and it resonates with you and you're like, yes, I want to do this. I want to do this forever, you know, and you do it. And then when it doesn't resonate with you anymore, you can let it go. And I don't feel comfortable with that.
Whew, that's scary.
At all. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary, right? Like, oh my gosh. And I feel like that's because there isn't a product at the end. Like, I'm used to
Yes.
getting something for whatever I input, I want something out. And it's that same thing, right? At the end of the year, you've completed all of your curriculum. You have all of your workbooks done, right? And even when I was in high school, I went to my last 2 years I spent in public school. And one of our classes, I remember we didn't get through the whole book. We had like 2 chapters left at the end of the class. And I was like a tiny bit freaked out, because I'm like, what the heck, man? I was homeschooling and I was in charge of like getting through all my stuff. And I got through all my chapters. Like, here, there's like a paid person who's supposed to be teaching us. And how are you leaving 2 chapters out? And, you know, it was like kind of intense. What are we going to do? We left these 2 chapters out. Guess what? Never went back and finished those 2 chapters. I've lived for 44 years without those 2 chapters, perfectly fine. I don't even know what class it was in, right? Like, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
It isn't important. And luckily the teacher got that, the things that we needed, right? We were being presented and walking through it at a pace which was acceptable. And so it was fine. And nobody was stressed over it. But inside, I was like, whoa, this is terrible. You're leaving 2 chapters out.
Yeah.
But all of that to say, it's a really important life skill to be able to pursue something just for this pursuit, and not be like, okay, I'm only doing this because I'm going to have something at the end of this. And you get to do stuff just because it's fun, just because you enjoy it. And then everything else kind of falls into place when you do that, as opposed to just push all the time, and finding that you end up with a lot of resistance because nobody ends up being happy.
And we know what happens when there's resistance.
Yeah, it doesn't work out. And it's really relationship breaking. It breaks relationship when you're with kids and you've set out whatever they're supposed to do. And if they don't have a choice in that, and if they don't get to, agree and make the plan together as to what they want to do, and you're pushing someone else, gosh darn it, I do not like it when people come into my life and push me to do something that I don't want to do. Like, no, I'm gonna be real upset about that. And I'm certainly not gonna want you to come and put your arm around me and be like, oh, hey baby, this is really gonna be okay. I'm gonna be like, no, this is not gonna be okay. And this is pretty much your fault.
So are you saying kids are no different than us? What are you saying?
Yeah, I am saying that children are people too. Yes. And I think the problem is that we don't trust ourselves first, right? Which is why we don't allow ourselves to end a project. We don't allow ourselves to leave a bad relationship. We don't allow ourselves even to like decorate our home in the way that might feel the best to us, because we're like, oh man, I don't know, I can't paint these walls salmon. Like that's a really obnoxious color. Right? Like,
great example. Yeah. I'm sorry, but yeah, that was a great example. Sounds crazy, but I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's those little things that a lot of times we're keeping ourselves in check, and to check someone else in that, and to like put all of these things on someone else is just, it's ludicrous. You know, we don't like it, and we don't want other people to do it to us. So why do we think that that's okay to do to a child just because they're smaller than us? Like, sorry, you know, like I don't do, my husband's shorter than me. I don't tell him what to do because he's shorter than me. Like, well, you're cleaning the dishes every night because you're shorter than me. Like, that's not a thing.
So, okay, they learn to read and write and do math then. Like
They do.
They just do. Like, can you talk about like how, okay, let me just say, I am on board. I want this for my kids. We don't have a community quite yet. Okay. Like I said, they've self-directed themselves into school. So we're homeschooling now, and I am the tall one standing over the short one saying, you know, it's so uncomfortable. So I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you at first talk about, no one has to do anything. And then you explain that. And I get it. Like I feel like the part of me connected to the entire universe, no question. Just like alarms. Like I can feel my system just like rising up inside, going like my school system, the DNA that's in my DNA. I'm sorry, it's just there. I'm in my first decade of unschooling myself, and it's not enough time yet. I'm not done. So it's like, I'm like, no, and no. Math, really? You have to repeat math. Like you have to show up on a regular basis. Everybody knows the brain learns pathways. Writing and reading, no, that's not, it just doesn't work that way. And I have like a culture to prove it. Like we have schools, like nobody questions this stuff. So why is it okay? Like, and furthermore, okay, let me go. And furthermore, like, say we do this. Okay, you're actually doing it. Okay, so say it's happening. Like, that's like a subculture. Like, how do you even do that? Say you can do this in the community like you're doing. Say it's happening. Like, how do you even exist being able to live that way when you have to, at the end of your school community day, go back into the world? That does not even work that way. So let's come back to, my kids will learn anything, really, math, reading, and like, how do you even live in a culture that's like, no?
Yeah, so those are two vastly different realms of answers, but I'll answer the first one and then bring me back to the second one, because the first one is also a big answer. So the first one is like, no, we have seen in our culture that it takes 400 repetitions in order to learn something, right? And that is a proved fact. So it's not, this isn't something that you're just making up. This fear isn't something that you're making up. This is a real fear that you have that is based on scientific fact. It literally takes 400 repetitions of something in order to learn it, right? And that's what you want, right? You want it to like sink into your head. You just want to know 2 + 2 is, right? You just want it to flow out. And you feel like that's pretty necessary because, to be 100% honest, it literally is. It's really important. If you are even doing a tiny little thing like selling lemonade, you really need to know things like that, right? So to say nothing of like a house payment and all those things. Okay, so the thing that you're feeling is real. And that feeling is based on a set of implements that have happened in our culture that have taken out a huge factor. So that factor that has been removed is freedom of choice, right? So what those numbers are based on. And that's a legit, 400 is the number. You have to repeat something 400 times in order for it to be like 2 + 2, bam, for it to really sink in. It's
Any brain, child or adult?
Yeah, 400 times.
Okay.
It's kind of like the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like you move into this level of absorption and being able to repeat this after 200 reps. Okay, or 400 reps, sorry. Okay, so that number is a real number. Unfortunately, it's based on the fact that you've removed personal freedom from the equation. So someone who is compelled to learn something requires 400 reps in order to make it sink into their innate knowledge. That's the equation. And that's the equation we've been running on for 100, maybe a little less than 100 years. And the whole world functions in that equation right now. And everybody knows it. So it's not like you shouldn't feel bad because you're like, oh, this equation doesn't make sense. It does make sense. So something you're compelled to learn plus 400 reps equals knowledge. Always. You're safe. You're good.
Okay.
The thing that we are adding back in is when you put a third factor of you picked this, you love this, you want to know this. This is, you have now initiated the acquiring of this knowledge, right? So we're putting that over on this side of the equation. So now you pick it. You pick it instead of compelled to. We're trading out compulsion and we're bringing in choice. If it's your choice and driven by you, this number changes. This number of 400 reps changes to 10.
No.
Yes, 10. 10. 10.
Okay.
So that's the missing thing, right? That's the missing thing is if I have to power down 400 reps of something to you in order for you to acquire this knowledge, I mean, you damn well better be working it because it's going to take time and you're going to have to, that's a massive amount of repetitions, right?
Every day.
Every day, and don't miss any, and you're going to fall behind in your 2 months of being off and all of this stuff, right? The magic thing is, and it literally is magic. I've been doing this now for 5 years and watched it. And we watch it all the time in our toddlers, but it's magical. It's magical when you come to me and you say, hey, I just got ripped off at my lemonade stand. I thought I was going to make $20. I ended up making $2. You got to help me with this, right? What happened?
Firsthand, that's happened. Yes.
Bam. When that happens and you have come to me and you've said, I'm pretty sure you have the knowledge to make this not happen for me next time. Can you share it with me? Then how long is it going to take us to do those 10 reps? And you're going to do your lemonade stand again the next day.
Yeah.
So what would have taken you 400 worksheets, I can now do in 4 pages, and you're good to go the next day, and you've got it. And it's never going to leave you the same as when you did 400 repetitions of it. Okay, 400 worksheets. Let's just say it's a worksheet, right? And I teach you that concept on a page, and we're working it out. Whereas you would have had to do 400 of those, now you only have to do 10 of them. Well, let's say you divide it up and you only do 5 pages per day, right? So in 2 days, you run your lemonade stand and you're good. You're never going to get ripped off again. It took a long time to do those 400 worksheets the other way. So yeah, that's the missing piece. That's why it doesn't make sense. Of course, it doesn't make sense. If you don't allow them to come and seek the knowledge out, then you have to do those 400 reps. And then it does, like, there's no way this can ever happen. And that is true. That's a true fact. So you have to allow that freedom of choice to come in. But the fact is, like, daily life provides enough experiences that they continue to seek out more and more and more just higher levels of life experience. And so, you know, they come and they learn those few things about their lemonade stand, and then they come and they learn something else, and they come and they learn something else. Like, oh my gosh, I'm getting these cups. Well, my lemonade stand went really well last time, but now I need 100 cups this time, and we're in the store looking for cups, and 20 cups is this much, and 100 cups is this much, right? And then you're like, well, how much is it per cup? And you're doing, so it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger naturally, because
it's on the job training.
Yeah. And it's fun, you know, they're out there because they have their neighbor brought them lemons. We have lemons from our neighbor right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have all these lemons. It's lemon season. Let's go make some cash.
Yeah.
We want whatever's next. So yeah, that's that piece of watching the magic unfold of just like, man, it's all right there, and it happens every single time. And even big things, right? So I can literally, math is a real big concern, because all of us who are traditionally educated didn't want to experience math in any other way, because we were forced to do our 400 worksheets. And so we have like this negative feeling with math. Not all of us, that's broad, but a lot of people.
A lot.
We'll say most.
Enough. Yeah.
More than 50%, I would say.
I would guess to say too.
There's probably a solid number on that, but we'll just go with that. So anyway, so math, that piece of math, right? If you don't learn any math, no math, this child has not done a single math worksheet in their entire lives. They're now in 6th grade, okay? They're in 6th grade, something happens, and they're like, oh, let's use a cultural example. They're hanging out with their friend, and their friend is like rocking some math problem. And they're like, man, my friend can really do a lot of math. Like, I wish that I could do that. So they come up to me and they say, I feel like my friend knows more stuff than me, and that sucks. Can you teach me math? I'm like, heck yeah, I can teach you math. I can teach that child in 6th grade, mind you, never done a math worksheet before in his life, still counts on his fingers for everything, no multiplication tables, nothing. I can teach him all 6 years of math in 1 semester. 1 semester.
This happens?
Yes.
It happens.
Literally.
And you're saying time and time again?
Time and time again, because he only has to do 10 problems where the other kids have been doing 400 each, right? So I give him a problem. He does 10 of them, bam, they sunk in. I give him another problem. He does 10 of those, they're in. Another, right? You just snap through those little babies, you're done. Literally all 6 years of math I can teach in 1 semester. That's like what? September, October, November, December, 4 months.
16 weeks, yeah.
Which makes sense, right? Because 4 months, in that 4 to 1, 400 down to 10, like it's just crazy. So the amount of knowledge that you can acquire when you bring that free choice, the freedom of choice back into play is just phenomenal. So you can do whatever you want. You think of all the hours that child 1 spent poring over his 400 problems each. Now child 2 has come in, he's done 10 problems each, he's learned it, and here's the cool thing, he is now up to the first child's level of skill, but he got to choose it. So he's like, whoa, this is amazing. No wonder this kid likes to, is like showing off with his math skills. This is fun. And so he comes up to grade level, but then he thinks it's fun, where the other kid is just showing off because he's like, oh my gosh, there's got to be some reason that I'm doing all this work. I'm going to show off, right? This kid is like, wow, this is cool. I love this. And so he proceeds to outstrip. Now he thinks it's fun and he dives in. He is not, so they both, okay, so say they come up to grade level in December. This kid is here. This kid came up. Now he's at 6th grade level. He's at 6th grade level, 2nd semester. But this kid's on fire. this is great. I love it. He's come back over to his friend and he's like, hey friend, I know all this stuff. Do you know this? Do you know that? And then he is like, ooh, how do I keep going? How can I best this? And so but he's still on only 10 reps. This kid is still on 400 reps. So you can see that he like kicks, he just bam, so fast. Because where this guy's doing 400, he's at this snail's pace. This guy on 10 and loving it is like,
yeah, the resistance, I'm looking at the resistance difference there, because there's no resistance in one and probably resistance on the other,
yeah,
at least part of the time, because they're on somebody else's learning schedule, not their own.
Right. Yeah.
And so this touches also like, it's like a dream. That's dreamy. I'm in. We're in. And I've never met a child who is just like, no, thank you to that.
Never.
They don't exist.
Yeah, I love it.
And they trip out if there's even one adult in their life who even maybe thinks a little bit this way. So maybe we should do another, maybe we should do a different talk, because I realized that there's this, that anxiety factor that I brought in. Okay. So yeah, you have this going on in your community. What about living in the greater community this way? And I feel like it's tied into what I was thinking when you were just explaining this, which is, like that anxiety of having an older kid who doesn't read or do the math like everybody else yet. And that's a huge, for me, it was for a lot of years. We've made some changes and we're in another spot we're in another place now, and we could probably talk about that at another time too. But there's this, whatever I experienced. And so I'm thinking maybe somebody else has also experienced like this huge, huge anxiety factor over having a kid who doesn't do what everybody else does. Huge. Like, and honestly, like I broke in that as a space holder for this, because I'm just too tied still to the system's way of thinking and the system's way of like of checking out boxes. And so like at the same time that I broke, my kids were like, yeah, I'm out too. We all self-directed into school, and that's where we are. But I'd like to circle back. But so what I'm saying is, at another time, it would be great to talk about like holding space for a sixth grader who doesn't do that yet. Like that's a lot to ask a person. It's a lot to ask one's self. And this could be another talk. And it comes down to our relationship with ourselves. Like it came down to my relationship with myself and holding space for this. If we want, I don't know what we want as a planet, as a country, I don't know, but like this kind of just touches on other things. It's just like sparking more talks with you, because it's like, it comes down to my relationship with myself. If I'm nervous about what we're doing, what works for us in the face of what everybody else is doing, this is no different from a kid going to school who likes to wear pink and orange unicorn headbands, who gets made fun of. Like we're telling our kids, be yourself. And I couldn't be myself as a parent if my kid couldn't keep up with the other kids. That's a huge source of anxiety. It's very real. And my heart is like big for other people who want to do and be what they want to do and be. But it's just something I think we should talk about at some point.
I'm down for that. Sounds good.
What does this mean in your community?
Twinkle fingers. It means I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And I can do it without interrupting you if I don't verbalize.
So I just want to thank you so much, Emily. I just wanted to kind of bring it full circle and see if there's anything else you'd like to add about, can they learn? Do they learn what they want to, what they need to learn?
Yeah, I would just say there's literally now coming up on 100 years of data on kids who've been learning with that other element of freedom. There's a school, Summerhill, that has documented their kids' education. And they've always had that element in. So there's a lot of stories, alumni stories, people who've lived their entire lives like this. And so there's like tangible proof. You can look at someone else and be like, oh, they did okay. Maybe, you know, you can hold on to that because it is a little bit of a faith journey, but to see other people. So yeah, you know, Google Summerhill alumni. There's the Sudbury School, a Democratic school that's been running since the 60s. Summerhill has been going since the 20s, the other 20s. And there's stories. So if you're interested in this at all, you know, start listening to those. Just
so
YouTube
it's already
those.
begun. Yeah, it's already underway. It's been underway. And yeah, if I had it my way, I'd have communities like this all over the place.
Well, yeah, we're part of the Agile Learning Network, the community, and there are new communities popping up all over the world all the time. So every month we have new communities starting. And I feel like I'm very curious to see what this virus does for a shift possibly, and maybe parents being a little bit more open to looking at things that are a little bit outside the box for their kids' education. So hopefully it's going to be blossoming. And it is already, you know, we have trainings all over the world every summer, and it's happening.
At the trainings, I've been to a couple, you really get, I don't know, at the trainings, I really got a glimpse of who I could be and what we could be and what it all could be. Oh,
the trainings are life-changing because you really, in order to support someone else on their life journey, you have to be pretty confident in your own life journey. It makes you work out a lot of stuff. So yeah. I'd love to.
There's so many topics. I have like tree. I have like a mind map written down here. Whoa.
Well, I'd love to continue the conversation for sure.
Good. I'm glad you said that. I will hold you to it. And at some point we'll be talking about agreements. Let's shake on that. We agree to talk more.
Definitely.
Okay, Emily, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. And we will see you at the next one. And trust me, there are plenty to come because this stuff gets really good and really hot and really beautiful. Okay. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.